Little soldier boys went out to dine. One choked his little self, and then there were 9. 9 little soldier boys sat up very late. One overslept himself, and then there were 8. 8 little soldier boys travelling in Devon. One said he'd stay there, and then there were 7.
From now on, it is our task to suspect each and every one amongst us. Forewarned is forearmed. Take no risks, and be alert to danger. That is all.
Philip Lombard murmured under his breath, "The court will now adjourn." "Do you believe it?" Vera asked. She and Philip Lombard sat on the window-sill of the living room. Outside the rain poured down, and the wind howled in great shuddering gusts against the window-panes. Philip Lombard cocked his head slightly on one side.
"You mean, do I believe that old Wargrave is right when he says it's one of us?"
"Yes." "It's difficult to say. But logically, you know, he's right. And yet it seems so incredible."
"Mind you, the whole thing's incredible.
But after MacArthur's death there's no doubt as to one thing. There is no question now of accidents or suicides. It's definitely murder. 3 to date." "It's like some awful dream. I keep feeling that things like this can't happen."
"I know. Presently a tap will come on the door and early morning tea will be brought in."
"How I wish that would happen."
"Yes, but it won't. We're all in the dream, and we've got to be pretty much upon our guard from now on."
"If it is one of them, which do you think it is?"
"Oh, I take it you're accepting our 2 selves. That's all right. I know very well I'm not the murderer, and I don't fancy there's anything insane about you, Vera. You strike me as being one of the sanest and most level-headed girls I've come across. So yes, I'll stake my reputation on your sanity.
And my life, perhaps. Thank you."
"Come now, Miss Vera Claythorne. Aren't you going to return the compliment?"
Vera hesitated a minute, then she said, "You have admitted, you know, that you don't hold human life particularly sacred. But all the same, I can't see you as the man who dictated that gramophone record."
"Quite right. If I were to commit 1 or more murders, it would be solely for what I could get out of them. This mass clearance isn't my line of country." "Good. We'll eliminate ourselves and concentrate on our 5 fellow prisoners. Which of them is UN Owen?" "Well, at a guess, and with absolutely nothing to go upon, I would plump for Wargrave."
"Oh, why?"
"Well, hard to say exactly. But to begin with, he's an old man, and he's been presiding over courts of law for years. That is to say, he's played God Almighty for a good many months every year. That must go to a man's head eventually. He gets to see himself as all-powerful, as holding the power of life and death. It's possible his brain might snap, and he might want to go one step farther and be executioner and judge extraordinary."
"Yes, I suppose that's possible."
"Well, who do you plump for?"
"Dr. Armstrong."
"The doctor, eh? You know, I would have put him last of all."
"Oh, no. 2 of the deaths have been poison. That rather points to a doctor. And then you can't get over the fact that the only thing we are absolutely certain Mrs. Rogers had was the sleeping draught that he gave to her."
"Yes, that's true."
"If a doctor went mad, it would be a long time before anyone suspected. And doctors overwork and have a lot of strain."
"Yes, but I doubt if he could have killed MacArthur. He would not have had time during that brief interval when I left him. Not, that is, unless he fairly hared down there and back again, and I doubt if he's in good enough training to do that, and show no signs of it.
He didn't do it then. He had an opportunity later.
When?
When he went down to call the General to lunch.
So you think he did it then? That's a pretty cool thing to do.
Well, what risk was there? He's the only person here with medical knowledge. He can swear the body's been dead at least an hour, and who's to contradict him?
You know that's a very clever idea of yours. I wonder. Who is it, Mr. Blore? That's what I want to know. Who is it? Roger's face was working. His hands were clenched round the polishing leather that he held in his hand. Ex-Inspector Blore said, "Aye, my lad, that is the question." "One of us," his lordship said. "Which one? That's what I want to know. Who's the fiend in human form?" "That is what we would all like to know." "You've got an idea, Mr. Blore, you've got an idea, haven't you?" "I may have an idea, but that is a long way from being sure. I may be wrong. All I can say is that if I'm right, the person in question is a very cool customer. A very cool customer indeed. It's like a bad dream. That's what it is." "Got any ideas yourself, Rogers?" "I don't know. I don't know at all. And that's what's frightening the life out of me. To have no idea." Dr. Armstrong said violently, "We must all get out of here. We must! We must! At all costs!" Mr. Justice Wargrave looked thoughtfully out of the smoking-room window. He played with the cord of his eyeglass. "I do not, of course, profess to be a weather prophet, but I should say that it is very unlikely that a boat could reach us, even if they knew of our plight, under 24 hours, and even then only if the wind drops. And in the meantime we may all be murdered in our beds. I hope not. I intend to take every possible precaution against such a thing happening." It flashed across Dr. Armstrong's mind that an old man like the judge was far more tenacious of life than a younger man would be. He'd often marvelled at that fact in his professional career. Here was he, junior to the judge by perhaps 20 years, and yet of a vastly inferior sense of self-preservation. Mr. Justice Wargrave was thinking, "Murdered in our beds. These doctors are all the same. They think in clichés. What a thoroughly commonplace mind." "There have been 3 victims already, remember?" "Certainly, but you must remember that they were unprepared for the attack. We are forewarned. Now, what can we do? Sooner or later, I think that there are several things we can do." "We've no idea even who it can be." The judge stroked his chin. "Oh, you know, I wouldn't quite say that." "Do you mean you know?" "Oh, as regards actual evidence, such as is necessary in court, I admit that I have none. But it would appear to me, reviewing the whole business, that one particular person is sufficiently clearly indicated. Yes, I think so." "I don't understand." Miss Brent was upstairs in her bedroom. She took up her Bible and went to sit by the window. She opened it. Then, after a minute's hesitation, she set it aside and went over to the dressing-table. From a drawer in it she took out a small, black-covered notebook. She opened it and began writing. "A terrible thing has happened. General MacArthur is dead. His cousin married Elsie Macpherson. There is no doubt but that he was murdered. After luncheon the judge made us a most interesting speech. He is convinced that the murderer is one of us. That means that one of us is possessed by a devil. I had already suspected that. Which of us is it? They are all asking themselves that. I alone know." She sat for some time without moving. Her eyes grew vague and filmy. The pencil straggled drunkenly in her fingers. In shaking, loose capitals she wrote, The murderer's name is Beatrice Taylor. Her eyes closed. Suddenly, with a start, she awoke. She looked down at the notebook. With an angry exclamation, she scored through the vague, unevenly scrawled letters of the last sentence. Did I write that? Did I? I must be going mad. The storm increased. The wind howled against the side of the house. Everyone was in the living room. They sat listlessly huddled together, and surreptitiously they watched each other. When Rogers brought in the tea tray, they all jumped. "Shall I draw the curtains? It would make it more cheerful, like." Receiving an assent, the curtains were drawn, and the lamps turned on. The room grew more cheerful. A little of the shadow lifted. Surely by tomorrow the storm would be over and someone would come. A boat would arrive. Vera Claythorne said, "Will you pour out tea, Miss Brent?" The elder woman replied, "No, you do it, dear. That teapot is so heavy, and I have lost 2 skeins of my grey knitting wool. So annoying." Vera moved to the tea-table. There was a cheerful rattle and clink of china. Normality returned. Tea, blessed, ordinary, everyday afternoon tea. Philip Lombard made a cheery remark. Blore responded. Dr. Armstrong told a humorous story. Mr. Justice Wargrave, who ordinarily hated tea, sipped approvingly. Into this relaxed atmosphere came Rogers. And Rogers was upset. He said nervously and at random, "Excuse me, sir, but does anybody know what's become of the bathroom curtain?" Lombard's head went up with a jerk. "The bathroom curtain? What the devil do you mean, Rogers?" "It's gone, sir. Clean vanished. I was going around drawing all the curtains, and the one in the bathroom wasn't there any longer." "Was it there this morning?" "Oh, yes, sir." "What kind of curtain was it?" "Scarlet oilskin, sir. It went with the scarlet tiles." "And it's gone?" "Gone, sir." "Well, after all, what of it? It's mad, but so's everything. And it doesn't matter. You can't kill someone with an oilskin curtain. Forget about it." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." Inside the room, the pall of fear had fallen anew. Again, surreptitiously, they watched each other. Dinner came, was eaten, and cleared away. A simple meal, mostly out of tins. Afterwards, in the living room, the strain was almost too great to be borne. At 9 o'clock, Emily Brent rose to her feet. "I'm going to bed. I'll go to bed too." The 2 women went up the stairs, and Lombard and Blore went with them. Standing at the top of the stairs, the 2 men watched the women go into their respective rooms and shut the doors. They heard the sound of 2 bolts being shot and the turning of 2 keys. "No need to tell them to lock the doors. Well, they're all right for the night, at any rate." He went back down. The other followed him. The 4 men went to bed an hour later. They went up together. Rogers, from the dining room, where he was setting the table for breakfast, saw them go up. He heard them pause on the landing above. "I need hardly advise you, gentlemen, to lock your doors. And what's more, put a chair under the handle. There are ways of turning locks from the outside." "My dear Blore, the trouble with you is you know too much." "Good night, gentlemen. May we all meet safely in the morning." Rogers came out of the dining room and slipped halfway up the stairs. He saw 4 figures pass through 4 doors and heard the turning of 4 locks and the shooting of 4 bolts. He nodded his head. "That's all right." He went back to the dining room. Yes, everything was ready for the morning. His eye lingered on the centre plaque of looking-glass and the 7 little china figures. A sudden grin transformed his face. "I'll see no one plays tricks tonight, at any rate." Crossing the room, he locked the door to the pantry. Then, going through the other door to the hall, he pulled the door to, locked it, and slipped the key into his pocket. Then, extinguishing the lights, he hurried up the stairs and into his new bedroom. There was only one possible hiding place in it, the tall wardrobe, and he looked into that immediately. Then, locking and bolting the door, he prepared for bed. No more soldier tricks tonight. I've seen to that. Philip Lombard had the habit of waking at daybreak. He did so on this particular morning. He raised himself on an elbow and listened. The wind had somewhat abated, but was still blowing. He could hear no sound of rain. At 8 o'clock the wind was blowing more strongly, but Lombard did not hear it. He was asleep again. At 9:30 he was sitting on the edge of his bed, looking at his watch. He put it to his ear. Then his lips drew back from his teeth, in that curious wolf-like smile, characteristic of the man. I think the time has come to do something about this. At 25 minutes to 10, he was tapping on the closed door of Blaw's room. The latter opened it cautiously. His hair was tousled, and his eyes were still dim from sleep. Sleeping the clock round? Well, that shows you've got an easy conscience. What's the matter? Anybody called you, or brought you any tea? Do you know what time it is? 25 to 10. Oh, I wouldn't have believed I could have slept like that. Oh, where's Rogers? It's a case of echo answers. Where? What do you mean? I mean that Rogers is missing. He isn't in his room or anywhere else, and there is no kettle on, and the kitchen fire isn't even lit. Where the devil can he be? Out on the island somewhere? Wait while I put some clothes on. See if the others know anything. Philip Lombard nodded. He moved along the line of closed doors. He found Armstrong up and nearly dressed. Mr. Justice Wargrave, like Blaw, had to be roused from sleep. Vera Claythorne was dressed. Emily Brent's room was empty. The little party moved through the house. Rogers's room, as Philip Lombard had already ascertained, was untenanted. The bed had been slept in, and his razor and sponge and soap were wet. "He's up, all right," Vera said in a low voice, which she tried to make firm and assured. "You don't think he's hiding somewhere, waiting for us?" "My dear girl, I'm prepared to think anything of anyone. My advice is we keep together until we find him," Armstrong said. "He must be out on the island somewhere." Blaw, who had joined them, dressed but still unshaved, said, "Where's Miss Brent got to? That's another mystery." But as they arrived in the hall, Emily Brent came in through the front door. She had on a mackintosh. "The sea is as high as ever. I shouldn't think any boat could put out today." "Have you been wandering about on the island alone, Miss Brent? Don't you realise that's an exceedingly foolish thing to do?" "I assure you, Mr. Blaw, I kept an extremely sharp lookout." "Have you seen anything of Rogers?" "Rogers? No. I haven't seen him this morning. Why?" Mr. Justice Wargrave, shaved, dressed, and with his false teeth in position, came down the stairs. He moved to the open dining-room door. "He laid the table for breakfast, I see. He might have done that last night." They all moved inside the room, looking at the neatly set plates and cutlery, at the row of cups on the sideboard, at the felt mats placed ready for the coffee urn. It was Vera who saw it first. She caught the judge's arm, and the grip of her athletic fingers made the old gentleman wince. "The soldiers! Look!" There were only 6 china figures in the middle of the table. They found him shortly afterwards. He was in the little wash-house across the yard. He'd been chopping sticks in preparation for lighting the kitchen fire. The small chopper was still in his hand. A bigger chopper, a heavy affair, was leaning against the door. The metal of it stained a dull brown. It corresponded only too well with the deep wound in the back of Rogers's head.
7 little soldier boys chopping up sticks. One chopped himself in halves, and then there were 6.
"Perfectly clear," said Armstrong. "The murderer must have crept up behind him, swung the chopper once, and brought it down on his head as he was bending over." Blaw was busy on the handle of the chopper and the flour sifter from the kitchen. Mr. Justice Wargrave asked. "Would it have needed great force, Doctor?" "A woman could have done it, if that's what you mean." He gave a glance round. Vera Claythorne and Emily Brent had retired to the kitchen. "The girl could have done it easily. She's an athletic type. In appearance, Miss Brent is fragile-looking, but that type of woman has often a lot of wiry strength. And you must remember that anyone who's mentally unhinged has a good deal of unsuspected strength." The judge nodded thoughtfully. Blore rose from his knees with a sigh. "No fingerprints. Handle was wiped afterwards." A sound of laughter was heard, and they turned sharply. Vera Claythorne was standing in the yard. She cried out in a shrill, high voice, shaken with wild bursts of laughter. "Do we keep bees on this island? Tell me that! Where do we go for honey?" They stared at her uncomprehendingly. It was as though the sane, well-balanced girl had gone mad before their eyes. "Don't stare like that, as though you thought I was mad. It's sane enough what I'm asking. Bees, hives, bees. Don't you understand? Haven't you read that idiotic rhyme? It's up in all your rooms, put there for you to study. We might have come here straight away if we'd had sense. 7 little soldier boys chopping up sticks. And the next verse? I know the whole thing by heart, I tell you. 6 little soldier boys playing with a hive. And so that's why I'm asking, do we keep bees on the island? Isn't it funny? Isn't it damn funny?" She began laughing wildly again. Dr. Armstrong strode forward. He raised his hand and struck her a flat blow on the cheek. She gasped, hiccuped, and swallowed. She stood motionless a minute. "Thank you. I'm all right now." She turned and went across the yard into the kitchen. "Miss Brent and I are getting your breakfasts. Can you bring some sticks to light the fire?" The marks of the doctor's hand stood out red on her cheek. "Well, you dealt with that all right, Doctor." "I had to, I'm afraid. We can't cope with hysteria on top of everything else." "I wouldn't have said she was the hysterical type." "No, good, healthy, sensible girl. Just the sudden shock. Might happen to anybody." Rogers had chopped a certain amount of firewood before he had been killed. They gathered it and took it into the kitchen. Vera and Emily Brent were busy. Miss Brent was raking out the stove. Vera was cutting the rind off the bacon. "Thank you. We'll be as quick as we can. Say half an hour to 3/4. The kettle's got to boil." Ex-Inspector Blore said in a low, hoarse voice to Philip Lombard, "You know what I'm thinking." "Well, as you're about to tell me, it's not worth the trouble of guessing." "There was a case in America. Old gentleman and his wife, both killed with an axe. Middle of the morning. Nobody in the house but the daughter and the maid. Maid, it was proved, couldn't have done it. Daughter was a respectable middle-aged spinster. Seemed incredible. So incredible that they acquitted her. But they never found any other explanation. I thought of that when I saw the axe. And then when I went into the kitchen and saw her there so neat and calm, hadn't turned her hair. That girl coming all over hysterical, that's natural. That's the sort of thing you'd expect. Don't you think so?" "It might be. But the other, prim, neat, wrapped up in that apron, Mrs. Rogers's apron, saying breakfast'll be ready in half an hour or so. If you ask me, that woman's as mad as a hatter. Lots of elderly spinsters go that way. I don't mean they go in for homicide on a grand scale, but they go queer in their heads. Unfortunately, it's taken her this way. Religious mania. Thinks she's God's instrument, something like that. She sits in her room, you know, reading her Bible." "Well, that's hardly proof of an unbalanced mentality, Blore. We'd have to lock up the Archbishop of Canterbury." "And then she was out, in her mackintosh. Said she'd been down to look at the sea." "Rogers was killed as he was chopping firewood. That is to say, first thing, when he got up. The Brent woman wouldn't have needed to wander about outside for hours afterwards. If you ask me, the murderer of Rogers would take jolly good care to be rolled up in bed. snoring. You're missing the point, Mr. Lombard. If a woman was innocent, she'd be too dead scared to go wandering about by herself. She'd only do that if she knew she had nothing to fear. If she were the criminal. That is a point. I hadn't thought of that. Glad you don't still suspect me. Well, I did start by thinking of you. That revolver and the queer story you told, or didn't tell. But I've realised now that was really a bit too obvious. Hope you feel the same about me. I may be wrong, of course, but I can't help feeling that you've not got the imagination for it. All I can say is if you're a criminal, you're a damn fine actor, and I take my hat off to you. Just between ourselves, Blore, I'm taking into account that we'll probably both be a couple of stiffs before another day is out. You did indulge in that spot of perjury, I suppose. It doesn't seem to make much odds now. Lander was innocent, right enough. The gang had got me squared, and between us we got him put away for a stretch. Mind you, I wouldn't admit this if there were any witnesses, no. It's just between you and me. Well, I hope you made a tidy bit out of it. Didn't make what I should have done. Mean crowd, the Purcell gang. I got my promotion, though. And Lander got penal servitude and died in prison. I couldn't know he was going to die, could I? No, that was your bad luck. Mine? His? No, yours too. Because as a result of it, it looks as though your own life is going to be cut unpleasantly short. Me? Do you think I'm going to go the way of Rogers and the rest of them? Not me. I'm watching out for myself pretty carefully, I can tell you. Well, I'm not a betting man. And anyway, if you were dead, I wouldn't get paid. What do you mean? I mean, my dear Blore, that in my opinion, you haven't got a chance. What? Your lack of imagination is going to make you absolutely a sitting target. A criminal of the imagination of UN Owen can make rings round you any time he or she wants to. And what about you? I've got a pretty good imagination of my own. And I've been in tight places before now and got out of them. I think, I won't say more than but I think, I'll get out of this one, too. The eggs were in the frying pan. Vera at the stove thought to herself, why did I make a hysterical fool of myself? That was a mistake. Keep calm, my girl, keep calm. After all, she'd always prided herself on her level-headedness. Miss Claythorne was wonderful, kept her head, started off swimming after Cyril at once. Why did she think of that now? All that was over. Cyril had disappeared long before she got near the rock. She'd felt the current take her, sweeping her out to sea. She had let herself go with it, swimming quietly, floating, till the boat arrived at last. They had praised her courage and her sang-froid, but not Hugo. Hugo had just looked at her. God, how it hurt even now to think of Hugo. Where was he? What was he doing? Was he engaged? Married? Vera, that bacon is burning. Oh, sorry, Miss Brent. So it is. How stupid of me. Emily Brent lifted out the last egg from the sizzling fat. Vera, putting fresh pieces of bacon in the frying pan, said curiously, "You're wonderfully calm, Miss Brent. I was brought up to keep my head and never to make a fuss." Vera thought mechanically, repressed as a child. That accounts for a lot. "Aren't you afraid?" She paused, then added, "Or don't you mind dying?" Dying? It was though a sharp little gimlet had run into the solid congealed mass of Emily Brent's brain. Dying? But she wasn't going to die. The others would die, yes, but not she, Emily Brent. A girl doesn't understand. I'm not afraid, naturally. None of the Brents are ever afraid. All my people are service people. We face death unflinchingly. They all led upright lives, just as I have done. I have never done anything to be ashamed of. Naturally I am not going to die. The Lord is mindful of his own. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror of the night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day. It is daylight now. There is no terror. We shall none of us leave this island. Who said that? Oh, General MacArthur, of course, whose cousin married Elsie Macpherson. He hadn't seemed to care. He had seemed actually to welcome the idea. Wicked, almost impious to feel that way. Some people think so little of death they actually take their own lives. Beatrice Taylor. Last night I dreamed of Beatrice. Dreamt she was outside, pressing her face against the window, moaning, asking to be let in. But I hadn't wanted to let her in, because if I did, something terrible would happen. Something terrible. Oh, my goodness, that girl is looking at me very strangely. Everything ready, is it? Good. Well, we'll take the breakfast up. Breakfast was a very curious meal. Everyone was very polite. May I get you some more coffee, Miss Brent? Miss Claythorne, a slice of ham? Another piece of bacon? 6 people, all outwardly self-possessed and normal. And within, thoughts that ran round in a circle like squirrels in a cage. What next? What next? Who? Which? Would it work, I wonder? It's worth trying. Is there time? My God, if there's time. Religious mania, that's the ticket. Looking at her, though, you could hardly believe it. Suppose I'm wrong. It's crazy, everything's crazy. I'm going crazy. Moon disappearing, red silk curtains, doesn't make any sense. I can't get the hang of it. The damn fool, he believed every word I said to him. It was easy. But I must be careful, though, very careful. 6 of those china figures. Only 6 now. How many will there be by tonight? Who'll have the last egg? Marmalade? Thanks. Can I give you some ham? 6 people, behaving normally, at breakfast. The meal was over. Mr. Justice Wargrave cleared his throat. It would be advisable, I think, if we met to discuss the situation. Shall we say in half an hour's time in the drawing-room? Everyone made a sound suggestive of agreement. Vera began to pile plates together. I'll clear away and wash up. We'll bring the stuff out to the pantry for you, said Philip Lombard. Thank you. Emily Brent, rising to her feet, sat down again. Oh, dear. Is there anything the matter, Miss Brent? Oh, I'm sorry. I'd like to help Miss Claythorne, but I don't know how it is. I just feel a little giddy. Giddy, eh? Dr. Armstrong came towards her. Well, that's quite natural. Delayed shock. I can give you something to... No! The word burst from her lips like an exploding shell. It took everyone aback. Dr. Armstrong flushed a deep red. There was no mistaking the fear and suspicion in her face. Just as you please, Miss Brent. I don't wish to take anything at all. I will just sit here quietly till the giddiness passes off. Thank you. They finished clearing away the breakfast things. Blore said, I'm a domestic sort of man. I'll give you a hand, Miss Claythorne. Thank you. Emily Brent was left sitting alone in the dining-room. For a while she heard a faint murmur of voices from the pantry. The giddiness was passing. She felt drowsy now, as though she could easily go to sleep. There was a buzzing in her ears. Or was it a real buzzing in the room? It's like a bee. A bumblebee. Presently she saw the bee. It was crawling up the window-pane. Vera Claythorne had talked about bees this morning. Bees and honey. She liked honey. Honey in the comb. And strain it yourself through a muslin bag. Drip, drip, drip. There was somebody in the room. Somebody all wet and dripping. Beatrice Taylor came from the river. She had only to turn her head and she would see her. But she couldn't turn her head. If she were to call out... But she couldn't call out. There was no one else in the house. She was all alone. She heard footsteps, soft, dragging footsteps coming up behind her, the stumbling footsteps of a drowned girl. There was a wet, dank smell in her nostrils. On the window pane the bee was buzzing, and then she felt the prick, the bee sting on the side of her neck. In the drawing-room they were waiting for Emily Brent. Vera Claythorne said, "Shall I go and fetch her?" Blore said quickly, "Just a minute." Vera sat down again. Everyone looked inquiringly at Blore. "Look here. My opinion is this. I don't think we need look further for the author of these deaths than the dining-room. I'd take my oath that woman is the one we're after. And the motive? Religious mania. Well, what do you say, Doctor?" "It's perfectly possible. I've nothing to say against it. But of course we've no proof." "She was very odd in the kitchen when we were getting breakfast. Her eyes—" "Well, you can't judge her by that. We're all off our heads a bit by now. There's another thing. She's the only one who wouldn't give an explanation after that gramophone record. Why? Because she hadn't any to give." "Well, that's not quite true. She told me afterwards." "What did she tell you, Miss Claythorne?" Vera repeated the story of Beatrice Taylor.
"I see. A perfectly straightforward story. I personally should have no difficulty in accepting that. Tell me, Miss Claythorne, did she appear to be troubled by a sense of guilt or feeling of remorse for her attitude in the matter?" "None whatever. She was completely unmoved. Hearts as hard as flints, these righteous spinsters. Envy, mostly."
It is now 5 minutes to 11. I think we should summon Miss Brent to join our conclave. Aren't you going to take any action? I fail to see what action we can take. Our suspicions are, at the moment, only suspicions. I will, however, ask Dr. Armstrong to observe Miss Brent's demeanour very carefully. Let us now go into the dining-room. They found Emily Brent sitting in the chair in which they'd left her. From behind they saw nothing amiss, except that she did not seem to hear their entrance into the room. And then they saw her face, suffused with blood, with blue lips and staring eyes. Blore said, "My God, she's dead." "One more of us acquitted. Too late."
6 little soldier boys playing with a hive. A bumblebee stung one, and then there were 5.